Okay, I'm Dennis Easter, Senior Solutions Engineer with Algorithm, Acumatica partner, and I appreciate you all joining me, putting up with my technical difficulties. I'm high atop some mountain that I don't know where it is. So let's go ahead and get started. I'll share my screen and let's talk about some workflow. How about that? So go ahead and this is workflow automation, how to make better processes and get better results. So if you're looking for the raffle to win the cruise to the Caribbean, sorry, wrong place. So let's take a look at what we're going to talk about today. Let's start with a survey. There's a recent survey that said, and 45%, which is a pretty big number, they answered that poor communication is still an issue after their ERP implementation is complete. And there are several reasons for that. But one of the things I want to do is I'm not going to bring you problems, I want to bring you solutions. And so what I want to do is take a look at, first of all, what is workflow and how communication plays into that. What does most workflow look like today? And then let's take a look at, once you take advantage of integrated workflow, what it can do for you, where that return on investment is. And then we'll also review several types of workflow along the way. And if that's okay with you, we'll go ahead and get started. So first, what is workflow? Exactly. So both Merriam and Webster agree that it's a sequence of steps involved in moving from the beginning to the end of a working process. So like a typical dictionary definition, it includes one of the roots of the word, so it's working process. So here's Dennis's definition, and that's making sure that the right things get done by the right people at the right time to get the right results. And one of the things that we find with many companies that we work with is that email is the workflow tool of choice. And with that, it poses a couple problems. And one of them is that it's a black hole. Okay. Once you send it, who knows that you sent it? You do. And so it doesn't have to be that way. So let's do a little comparison here between email and integrated workflow in Acumatica, some of the tools that we're going to look at. So with email, it's convenient. Everybody has it on their desktop. Everybody is used to using it, and firing off a quick note is pretty darn easy. But the problem is that it's a black hole. Well, when we look at workflow, and with workflow, I'm talking about those things inside of Acumatica that help you make sure the right people are doing the right things to get the right results. Okay. First of all, you gain some visibility to the process and the status of the tasks involved. It's also very contextual. So if you remember on your Acumatica screens, you can look at the activities associated with each of the documents, whether it's a sales order, production order, collection efforts on a customer, and such. And you can link those activities, and we'll take a look at that in a little bit too. And so with that, as we go back to what we're going to talk about, we'll start with what I think can be the basis of a really solid workflow in Acumatica, and that is the Acumatica task. And so with the Acumatica task, one of the things that I want to point out is that you've got traceability. So you know what you know the tasks that you created, you know the tasks that you can look at based on the status, and you can also categorize and classify them so that you can create different tasks with required data points for different activities. And so the task itself is really a great communication tool, because once you create a task for someone, then you have visibility to it. Everybody in Acumatica that has rights can see that, and so there's constant accountability. And one of the things that makes a great process is when you have great accountability. The next part that has to do with a task is, after you've created it, if you need to, you can go ahead and you can create subtasks. So you can see that there's an activities tab on a task in Acumatica, and this is where you can record notes, emails, all of the work that you're doing in order to complete the task. And so that way, when you mark the task complete, you've developed your own audit trail for great accountability. And as you proceed in the work, you've got some place to go back to for reference. And so now you've got the right person doing the right work, and in order to complete the task. So that is a big help. And remember, with these tasks, you also have the files capability, to where you can upload files, whether they're drawings or letters or correspondence, emails from someone associated with that task. So that task can really be a foundation for getting your workflow done. And so now you've got the task, so you know what to do, and you've got your audit trail. But one of the things that is often overlooked, I've found, is auto creating of tasks using Acumatica's business events. And so here you can see that in a business event, if you're not familiar with it, a business event is where you can identify changes to the data and use that data then to create items or take actions. And so in this case, when there's a new change in the database where a record's been inserted, then you can have the system automatically create a task based upon a template that you've created. And so with this, we add that next step, because remember, it's the right person doing the right work at the right time. So you don't have to rely on anyone else, any human, because we all know humans can make mistakes and overlook things, get busy. You don't have to rely on anyone to create that task for communication purposes. The system can monitor the data that you tell it to, and then create the task and use that information to create context. And so that way, when this person is working on the task, they have the information that they need in order to do their research and relate to everyone properly. So don't overlook the use of tasks and linking activities to tasks and starting those tasks with auto creation through a business event when you're busy looking at workflow and how to increase and improve communication. So with the tasks inside of Acumatica, you gain a lot of power in order to improve workflow efficiency and improve communication. Get rid of the email, because, again, it can be a black hole. So we took a look at tasks and how they can help with with workflow. So let's go ahead and take a look at approval maps. How many of you are familiar with approval maps? So go ahead and click the little raise your hand button down on the bottom of your screen. I think you should have that. Approval maps are for those transactions that need someone else to look at them. And so if you've got, in this case, a large quote, and it could be that it's a large sales amount, or you can also see here that we have large discounts that need to be approved. And so the approval map in Acumatica lets you assign this workflow and these approval to the appropriate people. So in here, a manager needs to approve any of the sales or quotes that are over $10,000, as in this example. If you have, in this case, you can see that any discounts over 50% are going to require executive approval. Well, that makes sense because high discounts, really cut into the margins. And so the approval maps, once the document is released or taken off of hold, depending on your workflow, it sets it up into an approval map, and then it requires approval before moving to the next step in the workflow. And I've heard some pushback from customers. Go, well, we tried approval maps once. It was in their legacy system, of course. When they were telling me this, I said, well, why didn't it work? This is, well, the way that people would know they had a workflow is because we notified them with, you guessed it, an email. And people would ignore the emails. And so this is why, a lot of the legacy products that people are working with, this would be a big change because they will have tried something similar, but the technology just didn't create the right workflow and the right records to hold people accountable for. And so the beauty of Acumatica's workflow in the approval map is that it actually creates an approval record. And with these approval records, you can't get away from them because they're on the mobile app. And maybe people don't, that wasn't successful because you'd have to go to your desk in order to complete an approval map in the legacy software. Whereas with Acumatica, being a cloud-based product and using the approval workflow, creating an approval record, this is available on the mobile app. And so with that, you've got more visibility on the workflow. You're not relying on the black hole of email to notify people that they have approvals, because it shows up in the approval screen. And where can you put that information if you have those records? If you've been working on Acumatica long, you're right, you can put it on a dashboard. And so putting that on a dashboard now gives you greater visibility, gives you more accountability, because you know the people can see it if they're doing their job, if they're logging in and working with Acumatica on a daily basis. And if you're giving them that information in a dashboard that's important to them, they're more likely to stay engaged with the system. So that's a way that approval maps inside of Acumatica can increase communication and can make your processes more efficient. So we've taken a look at tasks, we've taken a look at approvals. Before we get on to the next section, let's go ahead and get a word from our sponsor. GoForms will allow you to simplify data capture and maximize efficiency with their Acumatica integration. This integration allows you to digitize existing forms, maintain the same look and feel, which makes your end user adoption much easier. With GoForms, you can instantly insert records into Acumatica and attach the form PDFs in the context when the form is completed. You can generate new forms directly from Acumatica with pre-filled record data, and you can sync the data between GoForms and Acumatica in real time and even offline. For further information, please check out goforms.com. That's GOFORMZ.com. And now back to our show. One of the things that I've found has been often overlooked in Acumatica, and that is the use of business scenarios. So a business process scenario is really a way for you to simplify complex processes. It's a way that you can create a task list with dependencies so that in that hierarchy, you can make sure that all of the required steps are being completed before you take the next action. And this is going to help make it much easier for you to get a hold of your process and really bring control to it, as well as giving you that help that you need in communicating while the process is ongoing. And so we take a look at this. First of all, it's really designed to control complex multi-step processes. Okay, it begins with a task list and a hierarchy so that you can create the subtasks, and precedents. You know, what are those requirements? And you apply a role-based approach for the scenario. So let's go ahead and take a look at a sample of this. And for those of you that have heard my story, you know I'm a recovering accountant. And so I'm going to go ahead and I built one based for the month-end close. And so we can see here in this first step that there are 4 major sections in this process. And so inside of the scenario planning, I have identified the major sections of the process. Within the major sections of the process, you then create tasks and subtasks in order to put the detail for each one of the sections of your process. So if you look here, you know, before I close inventory in Acumatica, I want to make sure that all my PO receipts have been released. I want to make sure that all the production has been posted. All the inventory adjustments and transfers have been released. All the sales invoices have been released. And then at that point, we close the period for each one for inventory. And then I have that same type of sub-process for accounts receivable and fixed assets. Now, one of the things to keep in mind in this is that this is where you build your predecessors and those requirements. So before you can close your period inventory, you need to make sure that all the other tasks have been completed. And so while these other tasks will show open, notice that the closed period for inventory is going to show pending. So it's not open yet. We can't do it. We're waiting on someone else. And so this really brings that control to the process to make sure you don't close the period before it's time. And so adding these sequences of events and the predecessors to your tasks, then you have the opportunity to go ahead and add that control. Okay? Now, another great thing about a process is that when you have accountability, and so you'll notice that you can assign the tasks to an individual. Now, if you've worked with tasks in Acumatica, where do the tasks show up once they're assigned? On someone's tasks list. Tasks list, yeah, say that. And so this gives you that accountability. You can see which tasks Eric has open as part of your month-end close process. So by assigning these to individuals, you now have that accountability. So we brought control through the predecessors, and we've brought accountability through the assignment to the individual responsible for conducting the tasks. And one of the things that you can do is build these recurring tasks and add them to your workspace. And so when you're ready to process a scenario, then you go ahead and just launch it from the workspace. And that's okay for those ad hoc type of processes. But if you have a process that is occurring on a regular basis, go ahead and use Acumatica's scheduling capability to run it now. And once you run it, you can see in the active scenario all of the tasks and their status. And so you can go into that month-end close scenario and you can see all of the process steps that have been taken and what's pending. So that last part was a little longer, but it's pretty in depth because it's really putting an entire process together. And so, you know, we took a look at some of the building blocks that we have with tasks and approval workflows and moved into the business scenario. So now you have an idea of ways to improve your workflow. And so with that, I hope that you all have a great day. A big thanks to acuCONNECT for allowing me to present. But most of all, a big thanks to all of you for giving me some of your valuable time. And I do hope this was beneficial. I will say that I missed out on the speaker training. So if you've got any questions, if you go ahead and put them in the chat, then I'll read the chat and see if we can get it. Okay, Elaine, I see you have the system send an email if there's an approval waiting, and send a reminder email if it's not approved within a period of time. That's a great way to do it. One of the things that we've done with customers at Algorithm is that instead of sending them an email, we send them a task to check their approvals. And we think that there are some benefits to that as well. Kimberly, I look forward to helping you learn more about the scenarios. I think there are some things that we can work with you. Is there a dynamic way to assign a user to a task? If you want to, Zachary, go ahead and send me just a few details on maybe the business case for that, because you can assign them to a work group. And if you have like a sales order where you have the owner assigned to the transaction, you can go ahead and use that data point to assign the task. And so that may be an answer. Elaine, you're welcome. Thanks to everyone for joining. Jennifer, thanks for attending. Gerald, thanks for giving me some of your time. Okay, Zachary, so we have project managers who deal with POs going to project locations. We need the managers to check that the product has arrived. So with that, what we have done, Zachary, is that we'll use a PO with an expected date and create use a business event to create a task. Because the project is linked on the purchase order, you can pull the project manager off of the project, include that as the task owner. Really fast, really high level answer for you, but I hope that helps. Gerald, thanks for joining us. Jessica, good to see you. Wish I had more time to talk with you last week at the show. Appreciate all of you. David, thanks for the thumbs up. You guys are great for giving me some of your time. Enjoy the rest of acuCONNECT. This is a great event, and I do hope that you all enjoy it and find it to be very beneficial. So I'm going to give you less than a minute back to go get a drink of water before the next session. Take care and thanks so much.